Welcome to the HR Happy Hour Work Break with Steve. Solo today. Weather has messed up everyone today, including some plans we had for today's show, but that's fine. I have something really cool to talk about anyway, which I'm excited about. Trish and I are talking about doing something from our archives occasionally, like revisiting something we had either written about or spoken about or talked about, because we've both been in this space for a long time, speaking, writing, being at conferences, etc. So the concept is called This Date in HR History. Like we look back on a particular day, today's February 17th, and we just pick like a year in the past and see maybe what we wrote about that day, or maybe there was an event we were at, that kind of thing. Sort of a bit of the Google Photos or maybe Facebook or something telling you, oh, on this date, X years ago, this thing was happening. So I hadn't thought about it in a while. We talked about it a little while back, but we hadn't really figured out how to launch it. And I'm still not sure what we're totally going to do with it. But I thought it'd be fun today to look back through some of my archives on my old blog for February 17th. And as luck would have it, February 17th, 2011, okay, 10 years ago to the date, was the date of one of my favorite HR Happy Hour podcasts still of all time, right? I've been doing the HR Happy Hour podcast since 2009, and Trish has been doing it with me since I think 2012. We're going to hit 500 shows this year. So I've done lots of them. And some of them, honestly, are a little bit forgettable, but some of them still stand out. The one from 10 years ago today stands out in my mind, is still one of my top 3 or 4 favorite shows we ever did. And the person we had on as a guest was the author, Sherry Turkle from MIT. And we were talking about this book, which was relatively new at the time, her book called Alone Together: Why We Expect More from Technology and Less from Each Other. I wrote about it on the blog as well. It was super interesting to read back the blog entry. I didn't have time to listen back to the whole show because it's about an hour long, but I'm going to in the next day or two. But when you read about it, and Sherry did tons of research, lots of research around teens or adolescents and teens about adopting to kind of think about 2011, right? It was the first cohort of teens to have smartphones, right? That was a new thing in 2011. The iPhone came out in 2007. Right. And I think for the most part, most parents weren't rushing right out in 2007, maybe even 2008 to give their kids a smartphone. Plus, they were super expensive. No one really knew how they worked. It took a little bit of time before having a smartphone as a teen was kind of a common thing. But by 2011, it was a little bit more common. And so there's a ton of stuff in this book about that, how teens were adjusting. And at the time, right, I read some of the things I wrote about the show on my blog. It was all about Facebook then. And teens were really, really just trapped up in this Facebook world. That was the big thing in 2011. But still some of the things that she found in her research about the pressure, the need to get likes, the need to be socially accepted in Facebook, it applies still equally today, right? So, okay, the networks have changed, right? So maybe teens don't care about Facebook, or maybe young adults, Gen Z, millennials don't care about it either, but they care about other things. And in fact, it maybe even could be worse, right? Because instead of just being worried about Facebook, which the teens in the research Sherry did in 2011 were worried about, now I bet the kids are worried about Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok and whatever else is out there, right? There's even more to worry about. So anyway, shout out to Sherry. And so I hadn't thought about her in a while. And so I did a quick Google search to see what she was up to. And it turns out she's got a memoir coming out in just a couple weeks. It looks like, according to Amazon, on March 2nd, she's publishing a memoir called The Empathy Diaries, a memoir. I'm just finding out about this. So I'm ordering the book today. I will effort, as they say, to get in contact with Sherry. I hope she remembers me in the show. That seems like that's a stretch, but I'll see if I can get in touch with her to book her on the Happy Hour show, because she's one of the all-time smartest people we've ever had on the show. One of the best shows we ever did. And anyway, shout it out. Still worth a read, I think. I'll probably read some of it again. As I thumbed through it, I'd highlighted a bunch of stuff as well, which was cool. So I was prepared for the show back then, 10 years ago. It's really, really cool. So shout out to Sherry. Shout out to This Day in HR History 10 years ago. One other thing I wanted to mention, we've talked about it a couple of times here on the Work Break shows, but the podcast that Trish and I recorded with our friend Lars Schmidt about his new book, Redefining HR, that did post this morning on the HR Happy Hour feed. So you can find it on hrhappyhour.net or wherever you get your podcasts. One last thing for me, since we're talking about Alone Together, and a lot of the book Alone Together is about social networks and pressure and their influence on our lives, on kids' lives especially. I'm not as big a social network person as I used to be, but I use Pinterest. I know that seems weird to even admit that out loud, but I use it because I'd like to cook. I like to grill. And that's my method of saving the things that I've cooked. So if I cook something particularly good, I will take a picture of it and I'll post it there. It just seems to make sense for me I can look back through the things I've posted and see things I've cooked and maybe get some ideas for things maybe I want to cook again or make a spin on something I've already cooked. But here's the problem with Pinterest. I made the mistake. Occasionally when I go on there, I make the mistake of clicking on some other pin that it's showing me. I don't follow anybody on Pinterest either. It's just what it thinks it should show me. So I made the mistake of clicking on like a piece of artwork it showed me. It's like one of those travel posters, which I kind of like. And I'm thinking about decorating my upstairs office with some travel posters from different cities I've been because I think they're cool. So I made the mistake of clicking on one of these pins. And now Pinterest thinks it's the only friggin' thing I care about. And every single time in the last 2 weeks since I've gone back on there, I see 8,000 versions of that same poster, just with different cities or different shades of color or different styles of artists. So Pinterest, please, I do like other things. It makes me afraid to click on anything else. Because if I click on, I don't know, like a grilled cheese sandwich picture and recipe, I'm going to get 27,000 grilled cheese recipes. Like, come on. I was interested in one time. It's making me afraid to use your service. Don't show me 87,000 things because I clicked on it once. There, that's my rant of the day. Finally, my favorite, I get a lot of PR email. Trish does as well. Folks who are in this space do too. If you're in the blogging space or the podcasting space, a lot of it is kind of interesting. A lot of it's garbage. But I got a really cool PR email of the day for an unusual one, which is from new work shoes from a company called Florsheim, which is a shoe manufacturer. And the only reason it stuck out to me, I did read it. I don't read all of these PR pitches, but it's about these new work shoes, some steel-toed shoes. And here's the quote, and I loved it. I don't know why. Here's the quote. The Crossover series is a dressy casual mix that adds sophistication to the safety footwear market. So shout out Florsheim at work. Who knew the safety footwear market needed a bit of sophistication? I did not know this. They didn't offer me a review pair. So maybe if they hear this and they catch up on this show, they'll shoot me a review pair of the Crossover series, dressy casual safety footwear. I'll try them out. I'm not sure though, here working in the home office, I need footwear safety shoes, but I'm not sure what can happen, but we'll see. All right, good stuff. I hope everybody's doing well. I know so many people are really, really, really impacted by the awful weather going on all across the country. If you are, I just wish you luck. Stay warm, stay safe. Hopefully it'll break for you soon and it'll be springtime once again. So thanks to everyone for listening to the HR Happy Hour show. Remember all the show archives, hrhappyhour.net, this show, the Alexa show, the podcast, all our network podcasts as well. Big news coming on the network very, very soon that we're excited about too. So thanks everybody for listening. Have a great rest of the day. We'll see you back here tomorrow.